to the Improv Summit. As always, I'm your host, and with me today I have a very special guest, as always, but this is a very special guest, my dear friend Jordan. Jordan, how's it going?
Hey everybody, I'm good, Spencer. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. Let's dive in, because everyone knows who I am, and if they don't, that means they haven't watched the other episodes yet. So,
Get on it. Get on
yeah,
that.
there's, at this point, there's definitely enough for a couple of seasons, but, let's dive in. Let's dive in. Let's talk about you and your improv background. That's the question. What is your improv background? Feel free to disclose as much or as little as you like.
Great. I will be tight-lipped. You must guess my improv background. I started in high school. Here's the story, real plain and simple. We met each other through comedy sports. Comedy sports has high school clubs all over Southern California. When I went to this high school, I was a new kid in high school at Oak Park High, and they had club sign-up day. I knew some of the kids through the theater community that were signing people up. So I, signed up for it, and I really would love to do improv. But I got so scared because I didn't know anyone. And so I signed up, and then, we put it on the family calendar. So, because everyone's schedules have to be known by everyone. And I decided the week of that I wasn't going to do it. I'm not funny enough, or I'm funny, but like, you have to know me. So I can't, and I can't think as fast as these kids. And, I don't want to like make a fool of myself. So it's Wednesday night, and it's 6:30, and we're eating dinner, and my mom stops eating dinner. She looks at the calendar. She goes, "Jordan, isn't today the comedy sports audition?" And I said, "Oh yeah, but I'm not going to do it." And she like, "So what time does it happen?" Like 7:30. She looks at the clock, and she's like, "Finish your food, get your clothes on, you're doing this." And it's like, "Meet me downstairs in 15 minutes, we're going." And like, sure enough, I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to." And she drove me to the audition. And then, to make sure that I stayed, she was like, "May I observe auditions?" Like, she asked the faculty advisor, like, "Hey, it's just a long drive back. Do you mind if I stick around and back and watch?" But she was there to make sure I didn't like be like, I didn't like show up and then just walk away and like just
Yeah.
screw off for a couple hours. And thank God she did that, man. It changed the trajectory of my life, for the better. I like to think. So that started when I was 14. And since then, it's been 16 years, and I've been doing improv ever since. Started with comedy sports, and I'm still with comedy sports to this day, but I've taken classes. Second City Impro. I think the only place I haven't taken a class at is Groundlings.
Same with me. I'm worried
Oh
that
well,
I won't excel. But that would bring me into something that we can discuss here in a second.
yeah, yeah, but that's it. I mean, the only reason I haven't done Groundlings is because I haven't had the money. So if I ever did, I would dive in, because I feel like the shows I've seen at Groundlings are never not funny. They
Mhm.
I know that if I want to laugh, a Groundling show is going to get me there. And so even if I don't excel there, at least it'll make me a better performer,
Mhm.
hopefully. I don't know. I'll have to ask my friends who have gone through the program.
Yeah. Well, the only way to get better is by doing.
Yeah.
Is really the thing. And I want to talk about something with when I said like I don't feel like I would excel in Groundlings. But also you said something about like you didn't think you were funny, so you didn't want to audition for comedy sports, which I think is very interesting because I think a lot of times people think, "Oh, I'm not funny. I can't do comedy. I can't do improv because I'm not funny." When in reality, being funny, yes, is great. When it comes to improv, it's great. But that's not like the number one skill you need to have as an improviser is to be funny. Because inherently things are going to be funny, situations are going to be funny, but there's also dramatic improv. There's improv that's not funny. So taking all of that into consideration, what are some skills that you've learned in improv that can help you in like a non-performance or a non-actor situation? Like, what are some skills that you gained from improv that you can kind of use in your everyday life?
Well, I'm sure that this is kind of at the top of everyone's list, right? But so I'll be remiss if I don't say it, but listening, right? Um, uh, Listening beyond just hearing what someone's saying. I had a really great teacher named Matt Young, who gave me a workshop. I was in a Matt Young workshop at a point in my life where I really needed to be, which is so often the case when you interact with Matt Young. But he started the whole workshop by saying, "What is an offer?"
Mm.
Just asking us what an offer is, and not like, showing up like, I'm going to teach you kids a thing or two. He's just like, what's an offer? And what we kind of came to together was an offer is anything that someone says or does, or something that they don't say or do. And that blew my mind, because what that suddenly does is open you up to listening to taking in what is actually happening, as opposed to the scene you're writing in your head or what you're hoping is going to happen. So listening is obviously one of those ones that that kind of goes at the top of the list. But then there's the simple thing that so few of us remember, is that all improv has a performative nature to it, but at its core, it's about being the least performative you can be. It's about in the moment, reacting in the moment, and people find different ways of being in the moment. But I think that's like the main thing. If you're going to take an improv course, you're going to find that life slows down outside of the improv class a little bit more. If you've never taken an improv class before, your interactions are going to start slowing down with your bosses, with friends. Things are going to slow down. You're going to realize you have more, and that means the tempo of your life isn't changing. It means that you're actually finding more space in the moment. And that's a powerful thing, because suddenly you can do amazing things, like, notice that someone's actually sad about what they're talking about, which is something that I think, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but a lot of people are kind of sad about a lot of stuff lately.
Yep. Oh yeah. And it's also interesting because I want to go back to this idea of listening. Because what's interesting is almost every guest has said listening is a very important in improv, but also something you can use in everyday life. And I think it's so true, because it's a sense of heightened listening. But I think what's also interesting is they say, what's the number one rule of improv? Yes, and. I almost feel like it's like, think of it as yes and being on page one of this book, this proverbial book that, doesn't exist because improv is made up. But it's real, but you get the idea. Anyway, but page one is yes and. But there's also like the forward, and the forward is where the listening comes into play. So you're already listening before rule number one. And I think that that's something that's quite interesting, how yes and is always taught as the number one rule of improv, where I feel like before I yes and something, I need to know what the person said. So having that heightened sense of listening, I think, is really important. So I'm glad that you brought that up, which leads me into another question. My segue, as you will. I don't. I'm surprised you said, "Hey, space work," because every time I talk on this, I'm like, I do my typing, and for whatever reason, when I type, it's up here, and I'm like, I've never had my computer up here, so I don't know like where my space work or my object work exists. But like I also realize like I'm not moving other than doing this, so it looks like I'm on it, because I can
yeah, there you go.
Paul Blart it. But anyway, so that's always what I do for segues, is I just like make a segue reference, because I know the segue is not going to be great. But that leads me into the segue of, we talked about some things that are important for improv, but I think one of the biggest, this actually is a good segue. I think one of the most important things about improv is the ability to enjoy it, right? Look at this. This is coming. So this leads into a question. This was actually made sense, this segue, but now I've ruined it. I'll bring it back. Okay,
oh, wow.
Segue. I just pulled it out of thin air, because that's what you do in improv.
Ooh, love it.
Paul Blart. Paul Blart 2. Which I still haven't seen. Anyway, observe and report. No. Okay.
Oh,
So
sad one.
so yeah, it's definitely not the funny one of the three. Of the three Segway Cop movies. Anyway, RoboCop. That being said, I mean, if you
Okay.
think about it, if you think
I will
about
not.
it,
No, my friend, I refuse to consider RoboCop as a Segway Cop movie. I refuse to
no,
think
no,
of
no.
RoboCop in the same category of movie as Paul Blart and Paul Blart 2. I know we're all about yes and, but I refuse to accept your premise.
So that also exists. In improv. So that's actually, I'll get to the other thing, but what's interesting about that is as an improviser, I think a lot of times, like when I first was learning improv, I was afraid to ever say the word no. I would always be like, yes, yes, yes. But there are certain times like where like it's like a scene where someone's like, I wish you would stop bugging me, brother. You're so annoying. Like just don't do anything to annoy me. That as me as an improviser goes, that person wants me to keep doing that thing that I'm doing as I'm bugging them because they're saying, hey, keep doing that thing because it's getting this reaction, it's getting this laugh. And so this is like this there's a line of people saying don't do that. But in a scene where it's like, I'm clearly in character saying, oh, I don't like it when you sing at the top of your lungs. That annoys me, brother. And then like the character person playing my brother character like starts singing at the top of their lungs. It's funny because they're picking up as a character, as an improviser, I'm saying yes, even if as the character I'm saying no, because of the listening. Oh, I brought it back. Because of
There
the
you go.
effect, right? So I think even then, when you're saying you refuse to acknowledge RoboCop in the same Segway Cop as Paul Blart, it actually makes sense because you're yes-anding my wild choices to combine all these like random cop movies that have some battery-powered elements to them by saying no, I refuse to accept those. But that also builds this world of this character being like, it's like this like idea of like, you're like, you can't just say every movie is about a Segway Cop, and it's like, but I can. Like Dread, the movie Dread and Judge Dread. There's some robotics involved in those movies. I bet they're Segway Cops too, right? Like, or like, I can, or like In Time, Justin Timberlake, he's got that thing on his arm. That's a Segway Cop too. They're all robotics, right? Or like
Yeah.
Real Steel is a robot. Transformers, they're all Segway Cops. Like there's this thing, and your character in this situation, your character keep going. I don't think you understand the point of what a Segway Cop is.
Yeah.
And so like there's this. So I think that was a great example inadvertently of saying no while saying yes.
Yeah. That's a great, that's I think great way of putting it. The other way that I try to explain it to any workshop I'm teaching, or even when someone asks a question about like, now you said no in the scene, but the scene worked. Um, I think the way I try to explain it is that I am always accepting the premise, accepting the reality of the scene. And
Mm-hmm.
if someone is making an offer that augments the reality of the scene, I'm never saying no to that as an improviser. The reality of the scene being we're two astronauts, and if you come in and you say, hey, did you eat my Dippin' Dots? Those are specifically mine. Me going, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I didn't eat your Dippin' Dots. Is not me saying, it's different than me going like, we never had any Dippin' Dots.
We're not on a spaceship.
And we're not on a spaceship,
Yeah.
because in the same
Or
way,
like,
you can,
no.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And like, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, chocolate.
it's floating right in
Ooh.
front of you. Yeah.
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 You didn't even freeze dry it?
The reality is what invests an audience in the scene. And that's why you so often have the trap of the toxic yes, right? The toxic yes, which is just yes and more, like we should go to space. Yeah, we should go to space. Oh, but there's aliens. Yeah, there's aliens. Oh, these aliens are mad. Yeah, the aliens are mad. And you could just yes and each other all day like that, but is that necessarily an interesting scene?
Right.
It all depends, but there's the toxic yes, and then there's the toxic no, and then there is a constructive yes and a constructive no.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that makes sense.
that is a bit, it is a bit weird to layer on top of the sort of um what am I thinking here? It's weird to layer that sort of nuanced understanding on top of a accepted standard of language in the
Mm,
improv community, at least in the English speaking improv community, right?
sure.
Is that yes and is important. Like, you do not reject offers, and anything you say is an offer, so you cannot reject it, and that means it's
Mhm.
bad. And just saying the word no, I mean, it's a great tool, right? For people coming in at level 1, it's a great tool to be like, hey, you can build something because we're playing with your partner, and if you say yes, you're going to actually create something that's way more interesting together. And then there is improv as performance, which is sometimes you should be at a high enough level of understanding that
Mm-hmm.
that you can say no in a way that actually is a yes
Mm,
and that's a concept that inherently we all understand after a certain point. After we
mm-hmm.
get our number of hours, after it clicks into our heads, we understand, like, oh, I can answer in a negative way, but that's my character and not me as an improviser, and it opens up
Sure.
more avenues, or it
Yeah.
layers in a piece of information. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, even see what's interesting is hearing you talk about improv. Clearly, you enjoy improv. So back to the segue. I think one of the biggest things about improv is, especially with actors, a lot of people are like, my agent said I have to take improv. I don't want to take improv.
Yeah.
And I think it's like this idea of already going in feeling like you don't like it. So therefore, you're not going to like it if you go in being like, I'm not going to like this. I'm just doing it because I have to. So I think one of the biggest things for me is if I'm going to do improv, I have to enjoy it or at least find something that I do like about it because improv is a specific skill that's not necessarily for everyone, but I think everyone can benefit from improv, whether you continue to do it or not. Even taking one improv class is beneficial. But I think if you're not enjoying it, finding something that you can enjoy is great. Which leads me into the idea of favorite. And I think favorite is turning out to be such a strong word because it's like picking a favorite is so hard.
Hmm.
But are there any? I'm going to put these all into like one big question, pick and choose whatever you
Sure.
would like to. Are there any like games that you really enjoy playing, specifically short form games, or any like improv warm ups that you like doing before a show, or that you like teaching before a show, or teaching game wise, whether you like performing or teaching, whatever in that you want to pull from?
Oh man, something I enjoy. Um, I'll take a game that the high school league plays a lot. And we end up playing a lot in the main stage too, is Expert Challenge. I like that game, but not for the reasons that people tend to play that game. I like it because it it requires the it is exactly what I love doing in improv, which is if you play it right, it combines um, like a roller coaster time effect for the audience. It also combines it combines speaking very quickly and like being clever, but really what it does is exemplify this concept, and the concept is that nothing's right, nothing's wrong,
Mm,
and uh, and what I tell my high schoolers is uh, the way when you watch a game like this, instantly you think, oh, it's about being really smart, right? It's about being really smart. It's about knowing more than the person in the box that's and let me explain this to any improvisers out there who don't know what Expert
yeah.
Challenge is. This is a game that I learned through comedy sports, so I'll explain it as a comedy sports player would. There are two teams. One person from one team goes up and starts giving a TED Talk presentation about a certain topic that you get from the audience.
Bagels.
like bagels, exactly. Then what ends up happening is at some point, someone from the other team will stand up and say challenge, and they'll then try to explain why the person talking to you is incorrect in something they said or did. And then they'll take over talking to you about whatever topic. And that goes back and forth for about 4 minutes. And the person left talking to you wins the game. So that is a game where, as an audience member, you sit there and you think, oh, I got to be smart to play improv.
Mm.
I have to be really, really smart, because this is a game about being smart and talking really fast and being able to snipe from the bench and being able to, turn something that someone said against them, but that's not what it is at all. Once you play it and long enough, you find that if you go into anything with that mentality, you're going to freeze. There's too many things to think about, and you're not going to be in the moment. But if you go into it listening for anything they're saying or not saying, or doing or not doing, anything's fair game. So the thing I tell, so often what will happen is, for any of the high school listeners out there, so often what I see in high school is that someone will come up and get a challenge, and this kid is the kid in the club that knows everything there is to know about Greek mythology. And he was able to get a Greek mythology topic. So now he's up there talking about Greek mythology, and everyone sitting on the other team is like, well, there's no way we're getting on now, because he knows more about it than us, and there's no way we could challenge him because he knows everything about it. And to them, I always say, like, the guy that's standing up talking about Greek mythology wants to sit down after about 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So the show, for the sake of the show, he wants to stay in that box the whole time talking to you. But you're not watching the show, you're performing the show, and that's your friend up there. So stand up, say something that's going to get him out. And the truth is that he'll say something, whether it might not be something incorrect about Greek mythology, but he might use a word incorrectly. He might say,
like, we all know about Greek mythology. Challenge, we might not all know about Greek mythology. Like, it literally can be, like you said, like, in the way something is said or presented.
Exactly. And it's all about the way that it's said or presented. And no one, and I've just seen so many high schoolers get so, like, mad and get their dander up about like, no, that's not actually true. Like, no. And then they fight me, the ref, of like, I don't care. And that's the great thing about doing it on Zoom, is you can mute them.
And that also, it's also a good point that you bring up with that too, of like the ref going like that's, I don't, whatever. It's like sometimes it literally will be like someone goes, challenger, like, yeah, get in the box, I don't want to hear this other person talk anymore. Like, it literally can be like, you just go challenger, like, yeah, another voice, get in, I don't care what it is. Like, and that's, I've seen that before in certain shows where it's literally like, you can tell the person is like, I want to get taken out, someone just goes challenge, I think I know some of those words too, okay, great, get in the box. Like, it literally doesn't matter.
I'll say this, what I really love so much about this game is that it is the microcosm of the larger improv show experience, right? Especially at Comedy Sports, where the show it's people versus people, red team versus blue, and like, this is life or death, the stakes are high. But in reality, we're all friends backstage. The way we decided the teams was, maybe Joey forgot to bring his blue jersey, so he's red. There's nothing, like, we're all just trying to make all each arbitrary. It's all arbitrary, and we're all just trying to put on a good show that has stakes and pacing, and if there's a bit we can all support, we support that bit, all to basically go so fast that the mistakes we're making are funny and entertaining. So it's again, I think I have a little bit of I think I've just been doing it so long that I start looking at things backwards, but like, looking at the reverse of what you think you're seeing and reverse engineering a game like Expert Challenge can actually lead to a deeper understanding of the core concepts of doing performative improv.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I mean, I just think of all these, like, just to give viewers and listeners an idea of like the arbitrary ideas. Like I was even thinking about like, I get in the box and I go, so anyway, yeah, as I was saying, and someone goes challenge, they used the word that ended with Y and then used the word that started with a Y, and I didn't really like that. And they're like, yeah, I didn't either. Get in the box. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, from so anyway, yeah, like, but like you're saying, it is like it is that idea of like just challenge. Like it doesn't matter what it is. You don't have to know about the thing. Like if we're talking about bagels or Greek mythology, it's like, oh gosh, I don't know anything about Greek mythology. What do I do? It's like challenge. I also know there's Roman mythology. Like whatever. Like also there's
Mhm.
other books. Like it really doesn't matter.
And sometimes the fact is that people think like I have to, if I'm going to challenge, it has to be a good challenge. But the truth
Mhm.
is, sometimes you need to break up the pacing, right? Sometimes you need a challenge for the sheer fact that like this game's gone on for 2 minutes. We need more challenges now.
Yeah.
And these are all meta judgments to put on a game that
Uh,
is very largely putting people in their head. And the best advice I have is let go of that and just the more that you just be in the moment and listen and honestly react as if you're in a scene with the person up there, you're going to have things to say. You're
mm-hmm.
going to find a challenge. You're going to have something to say. And you're going to be more engaged. And then at the end
Yeah.
of the game, whoever in the audience is going to come up and be like, man, you are so smart. How did you come up with that? And the truth is, smarter or dumber than anyone else. You
Mm-hmm.
were just happening to be listening in the moment up on a stage,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
And I
that's all
remember.
improv is. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember now, like, see, now I keep thinking about like every time like I've seen this game played. I remember one time it was like everyone was going up and someone walks up, they're like, challenge, whatever, okay, get in the box, and they go, yeah, challenge, I want to turn, and they were like, yeah, get in the box. Okay. But like you said, like breaking it up, it was that quick. It wasn't like
Mhm.
letting people get words out all the time. And I think it also, especially with like a team game, it is a bit of a balance because if someone hasn't been out, you want to give them the chance to kind of, if they're out and they're feeling it, give them a chance to do
Mhm.
something. But then once everyone's had a turn or two, like just roll through it, get that pacing going. So I think it is great, like you said, like the microcosm. I'm doing exactly what you did. I'm yes
Mhm.
anding that microcosm. It's like the idea you said microcosm and you did this. So I'm yeah. See, we
Yeah.
got
Microcosm
wow.
segue. Yeah.
This is microcosm. It's all coming together. Oh wow. Anyway, so yeah, so I think that's actually a great example of a game that works for a lot of different elements of improv because it doesn't really require you to think. The only reason you think it requires you to think is because you're thinking it requires you to think, and it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It requires you to listen, like you said, because as you're listening, you're like, wait, they just said blue, but it's red. Oh, it's blue, not red. Or like, wait, what are they talking about? Can I get in there and explain it better? Like I can explain it better, right? Like
Mhm.
whatever it is. And I think that that's a great example. That being said, let's move on to the next question that I
Let's
have
do
here
it.
on this list of questions that I kind of, questions don't matter, the points don't matter. It's all made up,
From
anyways.
the show.
Yeah, yeah, from the one show that everyone knows about. Just kidding. But anyways, what have you had any moments where you've either been on stage as a performer or as you were refing a high school team or coaching or teaching or whatever it was, where you either had an aha moment or saw the aha moment in someone, you're like, this is a moment, like this is a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, uh, I can point to a bunch of those things from my personal past. But the truth is, when you're experiencing it, it's really difficult to explain an internalization.
Hmm.
I think. Let me find a better way of saying this. Um, oh gosh, what is it? I think I've learned more from the moments that I've kind of failed over. Uh, you know what? Let me just say this. I did a show called Manor House Manor a couple of years ago. Manor House Manor was a long form show done with a lot of my friends from Comedy Sports, directed by Eddie Quintana. That was a long form improvised take on Downton Abbey. So it wasn't necessarily we were playing the characters from Downton Abbey, but we had these stock characters that we took from show to show, and the storylines were improvised every time based on actual storylines from shows like Downton Abbey and Upstairs Downstairs. And there was a scene. I was the youngest person in the cast, and there were a bunch of main stage players in there. There were a bunch of people from other theaters that I had like seen, and just I was so like nervous, and they were just so good, and they all knew how to be funny. And again, it's this recurring theme of like I got to be funny, and
and you don't have to be. You don't have to be funny.
You don't have to be funny. And so I was always kind of like in this self-flagellation mode and self-examination of like, well, what exactly? Let's break it down to the minute detail of why that worked, why that didn't work. And at a certain point, I just realized I wasn't enjoying the show. I wasn't having fun because I was always making a wrong move because I was way too in my head at that point. And that's when we had a show where one of the improvisers named Kelly Holden Bashar was playing this dowager countess character. And I was a footman, and she was leaving the manor, and she was in a big huff. She was leaving the manor, and I had to get the carriage ready. And so we were in the scene where honestly the highest status character and the lowest status character in the show were like together in a scene. And I was having to help her get in the carriage. That was the whole scene. I had to help her get in the carriage. But I opened the door, and then she was like, well, also put the stairs down. And I was like, okay. And I put the stairs down. And then as I'm putting the stairs down, I'm thinking, these stairs could be as big or as small as I make them right now, which is like a thought that like came unbidden. And what I've learned since then is an impulse, you know? And I had been improvising for almost 10 years at that point, but I hadn't learned to really listen to those impulses yet. And so I started making the stairs smaller and smaller and the scene, we had two scenes where, we had like about 2 minutes in this scene where I'm just this ramp, the way there's a ramp, and then there's like a little like moving escalator, and all to get up to this fake carriage, right? And I'm doing that, and then I get a laugh, and I think, oh, that's funny. I'm glad I got a laugh. And then I look over, and Kelly is laughing. Kelly has broken character and is laughing. And Kelly doesn't do that because she's a pro. But something about that just tickled her, and it tickled me. And so then we both started like laughing, and like, and she's like, okay, but what about the handrails? Like, oh yeah, I have to sit at the handrail, and then, you know, screwing in the handrail, and then like making sure it worked to the other thing. And then, you know, that's all I remember from that show. I'm sure there were some incredible moments, emotional moments. I'm sure there were a lot of other things, but what I remembered, what still to this day, was the joy of goofing off with an improviser in a scene, and the joy of finding something so simple. So when you say things like you have to enjoy what you're doing, you're so right. You're so right. And I mean, that was the big aha moment for me of like, oh, I've worked at this like an athlete. I have taken courses from like, I've sought out coaches. I have my journals. I like, if I can, sometimes I record sets that I do in places so I can like listen back. And I was like, I've been going about this like an athlete, and I need to stop because that only gets you so far, right? That the knowledge of what you're doing only gets you so far. And at a certain point, you have to start looking at it like a human being, because no one wants to, I was going to say no one wants to see robots improvise, but I want to see that. I do want to see in my lifetime, I want to see, you know, Alexa and Siri do a scene together at one point.
Yeah, and maybe a couple of segues too.
Yeah, a couple of segues. Yeah, and then RoboCop's in there.
Yeah, and RoboCop with Paul Blart.
Yeah, with Paul. Yeah, riding on all of them. Yeah, but that's the moment I think I can remember things kind of clicked and turned around for me.
Yeah, that's great. I think there are so many moments, I think, for me, and I've probably said them in all different episodes, but there's so many moments for me that clicked. And what I realized is I feel like I was waiting for like improv to click, and that like that's such a broad idea of like improv is going to click for me. But what happened is like as I was taking classes and learning from different people and like performing, I would get aha moments. And I think that I was starting to build those, and I was like, I understand what's happening with this, or like, I understand what's happening with this. And it's like, oh, all of these little moments have helped me start to really understand improv. And I think that that's one thing that kept me from being like, am I good at improv? Whatever, is because I thought I had to like just understand the entirety of improv. At one point, it was going
Right.
to click versus taking these moments where, like, I remember Holly Laurent telling me, think about, I was like, I don't I freak out going on like performing on stage because like I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. This like when I was first going through the improv training. And at one point she just went, think about playing improv as like playing basketball. When you're in the wings, you're like on the side, on the sidelines, on the bench. When you're in the scene, or sorry, no, when you're on the sidelines, you're on the court, and when you're on the scene, when you're in the scene, you're on the bench. And my brain went, what? I thought it was easier to like look for the edit, or like it was, but like knowing that it's like, oh, when I'm out and I'm just playing, I know that I've got a team that's going to support all the other stuff. It's just me having a conversation. Like that's what? And also I've learned like with a lot of improv auditions, like I have a tendency to like when I do words, they're very hard for me sometimes. I'm like, like the thing, like, so I was like, what if I just make a physical choice?
Mhm.
Like, is that so hard for me to make a physical choice to start as opposed to talking because I'm nervous about what I'm doing? So I've made like great physical choices where I'm like, I got a suggestion. I don't know what to do with this. I'm just going to do something.
Yeah.
And I remember the one, and I'm going to say it because it's like one of my favorite moments. It was a callback. And I remember the suggestion was like lawyer or judge or something. We're playing Foursquare, and I literally just went and laid on the stage and sprawled out and just went ugh. And then my scene partner came and said, "Sir, I know it's been a long day, but we still have some more cases we have to work on." And I just went like, "Oh, just 5 more minutes. I just need a break." And it was like me as like this high status character
Mhm.
playing it very low status, and the low status like assistant playing it very high status. And that was a really cool moment. And that's when I went, oh, I don't need to just start talking. I can make a physical choice, and I can do this and I can do that. So I think it's great to have those moments and also realize it's okay to have a moment as opposed to the entirety of improv. Like
Mhm.
having those little moments is really helpful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great way of reversing the metaphor of like, when you're on the sides, you're on the court. And then when you're
Mhm.
when you're on stage, you're on the bench.
Yeah,
Um,
I was told that like I think it was like it was like 2017, and I was like that. I remember that, and that was at this point like 4 years ago. I was like, I remember this specific.
when it hits you, it resonates. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the other thing that yeah. That's it. We can move on to
Yeah,
the next question.
yeah, yeah.
I think I've
No,
talked
yeah.
enough about that. Yeah.
No, it's all no, I love it. I love seeing how certain questions like really spark things in people. And like I think this is one of the first times that I've had someone talk about this question like it's like the favorite question that they've ever had. And so I love it because it gives such great perspective from different people on different things that you find
Mhm.
within yourself that really rings true for you, or something that resonates with you. And so I really love these like big long descriptive examples. I think it was really cool. That being said, I know that you just gave a lot of energy, so I want to give you a little bit of a brain break. Do you have any plugs or pitches? Anything you want to like share?
Sure. So there's going to be a show called Solo Must Die, which is a musical parody of Star Wars.
Mm.
At Flappers Comedy Club. It's a socially distanced musical that I'm gonna play a little bit part in, and I'm helping put together. All written by my brother Ari, and directed by him as well. Um, definitely check it out. Check out Flappers for more info. It's hilarious. It's all original music, and it's a chance to really kind of take on the Star Wars universe in a way that, like, if you love the Mandalorian, if you love the Clone Wars, if you love the main saga as well, the Skywalker saga, there's stuff in there for everybody at all levels of Star Wars lovedom. So that show is happening on May 4th. So get your tickets.
Ah, makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. That's like I can't think of the next question now because it just clicked on the May 4th thing.
May 4th.
That
Yeah.
like okay, we're done here. No. So one of Jordan, I think you've given a lot of great like insight into like improv and like how you approach improv. And one thing that I get a lot is because I've gone through a lot of different programs. Like I've done IO, I've done Second City, I've done UCB, I've done comedy sports, I've done genre classes at Impro, I've done Rogue, I've done hip hop improv, musical improv, two prov. Like I've done all these different types of improv, and there are certain ones that I would say I excel at much more than others, and that's fine. Like it's a building block, it's a continuation of learning, and people know that I've like kind of run the gamut of a lot of different improv schools and improv stuff, and they always say to I had not always everyone always says to me, but I've had
When they see me coming in Ralph's and they're like, Spencer.
the improv guy. No,
Yeah.
but I've had a couple people like before pandemic, but even like during pandemic because improv is so widely accessible from anywhere in the world. You can take classes no matter where you live. I've had people who are always like, "Oh, you do a lot of improv. Where should I take improv, Spencer?" And it kind of throws me for a loop because I can never really decide like where to guide people because I feel
Mm.
like there's so much involved in that. So the last question I have for you is if someone was to come up to you and say, "Hey Jordan, where should I take improv?" What would be a piece of advice that you'd give to help them start on their journey?
Uh, I would say where you can afford it. There are this is nothing to knock any of like the bigger schools, but I think that is especially in Los Angeles, because casting directors are kind of always say we're looking for people with improv experience. I think they say that because if you have training in improv, you're a little bit more familiar with the concept of like being in a moment and reacting honestly within a moment, which is acting. We can talk about that all day long, but a lot of the bigger places know that that's now a marketable thing, and so they've jacked up the prices. Where you can afford to take it is the place to take it. I think especially if you're a complete novice, I think find a community college course. Find if it's closest to you, find a local theater that supports, that has a level 1 improv class. There's no wrong way to get into it, because getting into it at every level, as someone who has taken from everywhere, I think you'll agree that the 101 course is pretty much identical wherever you go.
Oh yeah.
Maybe there's some different theories sprinkled in depending on whether you're taking it at Second City or UCB, because they're on curriculums that eventually build on each other, and so getting ideas in your head at level 1 is important because they as seeds, because they build on later in the program. But for the most part, I would say, if you're just starting out, find an intensive, find a 3-day intensive, find something you can afford, because it's going to be worth it, and have fun with that. The other thing, if that's your level 1, if you are a level 2, if you feel like you're intermediate, go take an acting class. Go take an acting class that is actually that's not like a scene study necessarily, but take something
Mhm.
where you're gonna like read Uta Hagen, where you're gonna read Stanislavski, where you're gonna read about like the theory behind acting, that like the method, and go take that, because that is where this started from. Improv started as an exercise. right?
Hmm.
Improv was never meant to be performed in front of people who are paying money. It started as an exercise. You have you're in Streetcar Named Desire, right? You're playing Stanley. Okay. um Stella,
Stella.
okay. So he's screaming Stella, right? Well, what about the times when he's not on stage? Do you know your character well enough? How can you explore all the different aspects of your character that aren't written out in front of you, for you? And like, what's he like when he goes to the store, right? These were the beginnings. These were the very beginnings. And so
Mm.
the things you learn are the things about intention, objective, what people call it, tactics. These are all things that you can break down because they apply in long form improv. They apply in genre improv, especially. They apply even in comedy sports, even in short form theater sports. They apply. So that's the long answer. Is you're starting out, get it wherever you can afford to get it at. If you are looking to go deeper, find a level 1 acting course.
Mm. That's great. I think that's great. I think when you were talking about, what are you doing when you're not on stage? What are you doing? What are you doing? Improv. We don't know what we're doing until we do it. So it's the idea of like you actually have time to think about what you're doing when you're acting. When in improv, you don't necessarily have that, but the skills are transferable because one is making it up on the fly and one is making it up potentially on the fly, but making it up as you're building the world. And what else do you do in improv? You build the world. So I think that's great because there are transferable skills to both from improv to acting and from acting to improv. So I think that's great.
Yeah, because in essence, when I kind of left improv for a couple of years to go pursue like straight theater acting, and one of the aha moments there was when I realized that good acting feels like improv.
Hmm.
When you watch someone who's like alive on stage and they're doing Hamlet, it's because the mentality isn't I know what the next line is. Right? They're living the basics of the character, just like you can live the basics of. Now, when you're doing performative improv, you come out on stage, you have a suggestion maybe, and you're finding the pieces, right? You're finding objective, you're finding tactics, you're finding physicality as you're going along, and you're just kind of deconstructing it and reconstructing it in a different way. Whereas in a straight play, you're kind of given all the circumstances, and then you got to do the living.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Wild
great.
stuff, man.
Yeah, there you go. Well, no thanks. I will say no to that. Gotta keep my what is it? My clean boy image. What is that?
Your boy next door.
My yeah, sure, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, my boy next door. I'm next door doing other things. No. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I said that was the last question I had, but as always
Yeah,
on the
and that's
show,
great. I'm so excited. I'm glad that was the last question you had, and let's just stop recording
but
now.
as always, since you haven't watched an episode, as always, or maybe you
Hmm?
have, know that I'm always a liar, and that's never the last question I have. I have one more question for you.
What could it
Or
be,
involve more
Spencer?
questions, but that question is, we've been talking a lot about improv. Do you want to do some improv?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool, let's do it.
Yeah, let's get a relationship.
Great. The relationship is going to be new parents.
Okay.
New parents. Thank you. New parents. Samantha, that new dress looks great on you.
Oh, shut up, Ricky.
And no, it does. I think we we're gonna we're gonna be great. It's not. It doesn't show the baby bump. That's all I'm saying.
If it's not showing the baby bump, then why did you say that it's not showing the baby? Why would that even come up in the conversation if it's not even showing?
I was trying to make you feel better. It's
Well,
I don't
dude,
I don't
you've made me feel so much better, Ricky. Thank you so much about making me feel so much better. Can we just get to this freaking bar mitzvah, please? I just want to go to the bar mitzvah and then come home and then not deal with this anymore.
fine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I thought I would cheer you up by you look great.
Thank you. And yes, I do look great.
I mean, you look pretty rad.
I think it's working. Can you keep
I've,
with the
you've never looked more beautiful.
never?
Like never. I mean, this is you couldn't be more beautiful if you tried.
I've never. That's the other way right now. That is not the way I wanted to go with this, Ricky.
Okay. Let me.
You
let me try
think
again.
that if I tried to look better, I couldn't? Then when I'm a tank right now.
Samantha, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. Let me try again.
Okay, but it better be good.
You look so beautiful.
Yeah.
You look just as good as the day I met you.
Better, maybe.
Yeah, definitely better.
I look better,
and I think you could even look better. I mean, like in the future.
You think I could look better, but I could do better. But I look great right now, but I could do better.
I feel like I'm sending mixed signals. I mean, you said that you never looked better, but you could. So I was trying to go off of that, and I'm sorry. I love you.
I love you too, and I can't stay mad at you.
Okay, well then let's go to the bar mitzvah, and you can show off how great you look.
Oh, so now I'm just a piece of meat?
That's not what I mean.
Okay.
Scene.
Yeah, scene. Yay.
Great. It was fun. Hey, Ray, thanks so much for joining us for the Improv Summit. That's Jordan. I'm Spencer. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.